A good day and welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown. We are on episode Kippersoff of the podcast now. It's hard to think we've done 34 of these, but it's been an awesome journey thus far. I am the host, Johnny Stope, and of course, alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Robert Munich. How are we, Robert?
I'm doing great. Coming off a great weekend. Summer's here. Sun's shining. Really doesn't get any better than this. So, yeah, I'm pumped and excited to talk a little Flames hockey today.
Yeah, I'll be watching the playoffs on the outside of my house today with the laptop because it's just that nice outside today. 26 degrees where I'm at. I'm not sure about what it is up in Calgary, but can't be much different than that. A good episode lined up for you guys today. We've been doing report cards the last couple of weeks here on the Red Mile Rundown, just jotting through all the roster and talking about these guys, kind of giving our thoughts on the season, a letter grade, and what we're going to think of in the future for each of these guys. And well, this is the last part of those. Let's start with the new $45.5 million man. Really took that sending down to the American Hockey League personal at the beginning of the season. Came back up, and he absolutely went on a tear. We're talking about Matt Coronato. This guy, I think, really asserted himself in the Flames lineup this year and really said to the world, hey, I'm here now. I hate the American Hockey League, and the NHL is where I belong. He responds with 47 points in 77 games, including 24 goals, which is clearly a career high for Matt Coronato. And the longer this season went on, the more Ryan Huska trusted this guy, the more responsibility this guy got. He was out there in big situations, late in games, power play time. Matt Coronato really came into form this season, really broke out for the Calgary Flames. Almost 2.5 minutes of power play time every single night, 17.5 minutes average time on ice, 17 power play points. There's a lot of positive things about Matt Coronato that you could talk about, that you can rave about. I really enjoyed watching the growth of Matt Coronato. Last year was a bit of an up and down season for him, but he took the opportunity this year, and the injury to Anthony Mantha might have helped that a bit as well, and ran with it. And that's exactly what you want from a young kid here. And he gets rewarded with a nice 7-year contract, $45.5 million. Nice little payday for Matt Coronato. Robert, I'm going to give Matt Coronato an A- because I love what I saw from him this year, and I expect more from him in the future. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a super, super exciting player for this franchise moving forward. You know, you mentioned all the stats there from this past season, and he did all that as a 22-year-old in his first full season in the National Hockey League. Like, as a 22-year-old, he's putting up 24 goals in 77 games. I think the sky is the limit for this guy. Like, I really see Matt Coronato being like that kind of 27 to 35 goal guy on average moving forward for the duration of that contract. And I could even see him pushing 40 for like a career year. Maybe he could do that 1 or 2 times. I really think the ceiling is that high for Matt Coronato. And the thing you love to see is the progression. Just to see like where he was last year to where he came this year is super impressive. You look at like the skating, the defensive play, the finishing ability, the shot, like everything took a massive step forward for Matt Coronato in the 24-25 season. And I thought he was great. And especially when he played on a line with Blake Coleman and Michael Backlund, I thought those three were really, really good together. You take a look at all their underlying numbers. They outshoot, they outchance, they outpossess their opposition every time they're on the ice. So really, really liked what I saw from him this year. I'm going to give him an A. I thought that he played well above expectations this year. Like, for me, I thought a successful season for Coronato would have been like, he plays in 50, 60 games, scores, in that kind of 12 to 15 goal range, and just kind of takes like another small step in the right direction. But he just blew that out of the water this year. He took massive steps in that development, and I'm really excited to see the future holds for him. I love the contract. I do wish it was 8 years. If I love signing these younger players in that kind of 21 to 22 range as long as you can, but hell, a 7-year deal at $6.5 million a year is going to look really good, especially with the cap going up. And for a young guy that's going to score probably on average around 30 goals a year, that's a great deal. So fantastic year for Matt Coronato. Loved what I saw from him, and I'm really excited to see where this guy's career goes, because I really think like the sky's the limit for this guy.
I had a laugh on social media when I saw the people who were trying to hate on that contract extension. I'm like, how much do you pay a 30-goal scorer? just ask yourself that question. This contract should be a steal. It might be an overpayment to start here with only getting 20 goals or 25 goals. But once this guy hits 30, which I think he's going to do quite regularly over the course of this contract, it's a great contract, man. Like great for Matt Coronato, great for the Flames, and it's well earned for anyone who's actually watched Flames hockey and Matt Coronato.
Yeah, and the criticism that I saw, it was mainly from fan bases outside Calgary.
Yeah.
Like I don't really know if I saw like many Flames fans at all criticizing the deal, because I think people who watch this team understand how good he is, but I could see why like people on the outside that don't pay attention to the Flames could say that's a bit of an overpay, just because they don't really understand what Matt Coronato is all about. But we in Calgary do, and I think it's a really, really good deal.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Let's move on to the next guy here. This is one that I'm interested to see where you go with him, because after the trade with Philadelphia, Morgan Frost was brought in here. He was hyped up because he's a centerman. His numbers on paper aren't going to blow anybody away by any stretch of the imagination, but he was actually kind of good for the Flames. What did you make of Morgan Frost?
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I wrote my notes here. The eye test and the numbers tell a different story. So, like you just said, you take a look at the numbers and they were not great. 3 goals, 9 assists, 12 points in 32 games with the Flames. The 3 goals sticks out to me. 3 goals in 32 games. For a guy as skilled as Morgan Frost, as talented, and also a guy that played on the first power play unit pretty much from the day that he arrived in Calgary till the end of the season, 3 goals is just not enough. So, the numbers and the production were very disappointing for him. But then you kind of consider the eye test, and then you watch this guy and you're like this guy has so much skill. Like he's so talented. He's like such a smooth skater. He's a good playmaker. He's got a decent shot. You just watch him and you're like, the ceiling for this guy is so high, but for some reason there's just a lot of inconsistency in his play. So it was interesting. It was kind of like a tale of 2 seasons for the guy. And for me, ultimately, you'd like to see Morgan Frost become this team's like number 2 or number 3 center long term. And if I were the Flames, I would basically tell Michael Backlund, take this guy under your wing next year and just show him how you play the game. Because if Morgan Frost could become a good defensive player, play on the penalty kill, win you faceoffs, and then add that element of skill on top of that, I actually think he could be a really effective player for this team moving forward. So I like the upside. I like the potential. Obviously didn't like the production this year. So when you take all that into consideration, I give him a C+. That's where I'm at on him.
Yeah, I like that grade. I went with a B- because I really like the process that Morgan Frost was undertaking, learning a new system, being in a new team with Calgary, and you saw all that, like you mentioned there, Robert. You saw this skill. It's there. He can move his feet. He can win you draws. He's one of the few Flames actually was over 50% on the faceoff dot this year. He's right there. He's right there. He just needs to find a way to finish the opportunities that are presented to him, including on the power play. You saw everything that there is to see with Morgan Frost, except for that finishing ability. And he does have that potential to be the number 2 C on this team. He does have that ability to take the next step in his game. And I love what you said there about Michael Backlund. I think could be a good student for Michael Backlund to learn from as well, because of all the things obviously that we talked last week about with Michael Backlund. But Morgan's right there. He's right there. You just need a little bit more from him. He's in a good price range. Let's see what they do with the contract extension as an RFA, but good age range story is what I meant to say there. Contract coming up here at the RFA. We'll see what they can get done here with the Flames. But Morgan Frost for me has been a really good revelation for the Flames. And that's a good trade. That's one of those trades you look back on and people are going to laugh at Kuzmenko having all these numbers compared to the 2 guys the Flames brought back. But it was more of a longer term look for the Flames with this trade, with the age and all that stuff with Morgan Frost. So really good season from Morgan Frost. Just need that finishing ability from the guy because, the Flames could use some scoring. We all know it's hard for them to score. Alongside Morgan Frost, we saw for a couple of games.
Actually, I got one more question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what does that next contract look like for Frost? What do you think the Flames are going to do there?
I think it's probably going to be a bridge. I think you're looking at a 2, maybe 3-year deal. The money part for me is the hard part because a lot of times you look at production versus the cash value. Well, if that's what you're going to go down, you're going to give like Morgan Frost like $2 million for cash, but he's worth more than that. So it's hard for me to find a comparable for what you want Morgan Frost to be, but a couple year contract for him, I think isn't out of the possibility here.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. So here's my one concern is, so say you sign him to a 2-year bridge contract.
Yeah.
Then that takes him to his 28-year-old season. What does the next deal look like after that? Because if he succeeds in Calgary, he's probably looking for a long-term deal. Like, is Frost the kind of guy you want to sign into like his kind of mid to late 30s on a next deal? That's kind of like one thing I'm thinking about right now, and I almost wonder if if you're the Flames, like, do you maybe take a chance and look at a long-term deal for this guy? I don't know how realistic that is, but do you think that makes any sense at all, or are you kind of sticking firm for a bridge deal for this guy?
I'm going to try not to cop out here because we were talking about that before the show here. Where are the Flames in 2 years? That's where I would like to know. Do you take the chance on a 2-year bridge for Morgan Frost, hoping the Flames are in a situation where they can take the next step as a playoff team and Morgan Frost is a big part of that? Or are they nowhere near being a playoff team and you have to move on from a guy like Morgan Frost? So if the Flames are continuing building this team, how we've seen Conroy do it, and they're adding that youth in there and they're ready to take the next step, I think a 28-year-old Morgan Frost for a few years is worth a contract that's longer term at that point, that he's going to be a cornerstone of a team that's ready to take the next step. And that's what you're hoping for Morgan Frost to be, is to be one of those guys that helps take this franchise to the next step in a couple of seasons. So interesting question there, Robert.
Yeah, and like you take a look at his point production. So in the 22-23 season, put up 46 points in 81 games.
Mm-hmm.
The 23-24 season, he had a 82 game point pace of 47 points, and then last year it was 37. So if he's in that like kind of 40 to 45 point range, like I almost wonder, like, if you're the Flames, like, do you maybe throw like a 5-year deal at the guy right now, a 4 or 5 year deal, lock him up for all of his prime years, and then by the time that contract's over, he's like 30 or 31, and then you move on. But like you can get him now for like a steal. Like, could you get him on like a 4x4 deal, or 3.75 million times 5 years? Like, and then that way, like I said, you lock him up for all of his prime years, 26 through 30.
Mm-hmm.
And he's that kind of 40 to 45 point guy for you. I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's all that crazy. I don't think it's going to happen. I think by all accounts, it sounds like it's going to be a bridge deal. But I'm always, in terms of like team building, I'm always in the camp where I think it's smart to sign your younger players to their prime years and have contracts expire kind of like when they're in their 30s, and then in their early 30s, and then you can move on from them. So just kind of something I was just thinking about off the top of my head, but realistically, it's probably not going to happen. Realistically, it's probably going to be like a 1 or 2 year deal coming down the pipe here soon.
I like that, though. That's an intriguing thought. Morgan Frost is an interesting player, and I think the Flames want him here long term. I just wonder if Morgan wants the long term deal right now, or if he's trying to bet on himself. I wonder if we even see a 1-year contract from him, and hey, I can show you what I'm actually worth, and then try to cash in. See how that rolls out. One guy I wouldn't hesitate to sign to an 8-year contract is the next guy. And yes, he's coming off a couple of scary knee scares, some injuries here, but this is one of my favorite guys, if not my favorite Flame right now. Connor Zary is up next on our list here. And he's had himself an interesting season. He started out really, really strong for the Flames. He had that injury. He came back. He looked a little tentative for a big portion of the season, and then he started to get back into form and started playing really, really well again, and then goes down with another injury. 27 points in 54 games isn't awful. It's not amazing either. 13 goals. You just wonder what that season would have been like without that knee injury for Connor Zary, and it sucks to give him a lower grade, like a C+, like I'm going to give him, because the expectations was for him to take the next step after such a great year last year, and to take that next step and elevate himself even further in the lineup. You saw the Flames try him at center, which I didn't hate. Still don't hate that idea. If they try him there, they got to give him some run support around him, some help around him that let him actually, get used to that position. I wonder if they try that again this next season in training camp and beyond. But really hope that Connor Zary, and all accounts are that he's healthy again, that those knee injuries don't affect the psyche of him going into next season, where he's more tentative in his approach, because he's best when he's aggressive, when he's skating and using his speed, his active stick to be part of this Calgary Flames organization. I love Connor Zary. I love what he brings to the table, and I can't wait to see what he does next year. Unfortunately, this year was riddled with injuries, unfortunately. What did you make there of Connor Zary and your letter grade for him?
Yeah, I really liked his first half of the season. I thought that he took strides in his game. I know the points maybe don't reflect that necessarily, but I think around the time he got hurt, he had 22 points in 41 games, which was pretty decent. And 22 points in 41 games, and taking consideration that he was incredibly snake bitten in the first half of the year. Just he was hitting posts, pucks just weren't going in for him. He wasn't getting the bounces. His teammates weren't burying opportunities that he was setting them up for. I thought in the first half of the season, he probably could have had easily an extra 5 to 8, maybe even 10 points. That's just how around it I thought he was. Mm-hmm. So, I was really impressed with that part of his game. And then the injuries hit. And basically from the point where he got hurt against Anaheim to the end of the year, I don't even really consider that part for Connor Zary, because you're right. When he came back from his injury, he was very tentative. He wasn't skating quite as well as he looked in the first half of the season. I do think the injury, it might have played a bit of a role in his mental game. I don't know if he's was truly willing to cut to the middle and make moves like he was before that injury. So, I almost want to just kind of put that off to the side, not even consider it with my letter grade here. And the injury, I see a lot of people online saying that they're concerned about the knee injury with Connor Zary, but I'm personally not, because they weren't serious injuries. There was no sort of ligament damage. There was no structural damage to his knee, nothing like that. They weren't serious injuries. So I think he's going to be able to have a full season of training. I think he's going to come into the training camp, really motivated, really excited to prove what he can be at the next level. So I'm not worried about him moving forward. The only thing that I kind of have questions about is just what's his role with the team moving forward. Mm-hmm. Is he a center? Is he a winger? And I would love to see the Flames commit to him as a center, because, the whole point of this retool is to get the Flames to a point where they're kind of back to being a legitimately competitive team around the time the new building opens. So I'd like to see them invest over the next couple seasons in Connor Zary and put him at center, so that by the time the new building opens, he's played that position for 2 years in the NHL and he's ready to be a top 6 guy, which I do think his ceiling is. So overall, I gave him a B this season. I really, really liked the first half of the year, and then the second half kind of, I would almost say it was a B plus, A minus in the first half of the year, and then the second half of the year kind of brought down to a B for me. So that's sort of the rationale behind the grade. But I'm curious, what do you think they should do with him? Should he be playing down the middle, or should he be a winger?
Well, he played center all throughout junior. He played center when he was in the American Hockey League for a bit as well. I think this guy can be an effective middle 6 center for an NHL franchise. So I would, in a team that's searching for centers, in a team that has 2 aging centers and nothing really behind them, I think it would behoove the Flames to give him a long run and try to play him at center. Because the worst thing that happens is they realize maybe he doesn't work as a center at the NHL level, but he's going to be a really effective left winger in the top 6. That's the worst that could happen, right? So, and the best thing that could happen is they can figure they have a guy they could put in their middle 6 at center that wins draws and can play an effective game. Much like you say, let Beckel Backlund teach Morgan Frost. I wonder if a guy like Nazem Kadri would be a good teacher for Connor Zary just to continue to help his progression at center. I am all for the center, because Sharon Govich should never touch center again in his life. Martin Pospisil is not a center as much as Slovakia likes to make him a center. And behind that, what do you got coming up next? It's Misa in junior. It's whatever Lipinski might end up being.
Yeah, Morton.
You run out of names real quick after those 3 guys, right? So what is it? You're looking at bottom 6 guys. You're looking at depth centers. You're looking at bringing back a guy like a Kevin Rooney type, if that's where your depth is. You don't have anything there. So Connor Zary at center makes a ton of sense for me.
Yeah, and next year, now I might be crazy for thinking this way, but I don't mind the idea of having of having Kadri, Backlund, Zary, and Frost all playing down the middle next year, and basically creating a new like Mangiapane, Ryan, Hathaway fourth line. Because basically ever since like that 18-19 season when they did have Mangiapane, Ryan, Hathaway is that incredibly effective fourth line.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth line in Calgary has been brutal since then. You think about the Milan Lucic's and, Trevor Lewis was okay, but, Brett Ritchie, the list just goes on and on. There was a revolving door this year with Kevin Rooney and, Ryan Lomberg's fine, but like the fourth line has not been effective, since the 18-19 season, that's 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I don't hate the idea of, spreading out the wealth among your forward group and having like your third and your fourth line play similar minutes. Like, you can have the Backlund Coleman line as a shutdown, Kadri is your first line, and then Zary and Frost play like a third line A and a third line B together, and both lines have like a kind of a bit of mix of skill and a little bit of grit on them. Like maybe they can both play around 13, 14 minutes a night, something like that. Like I think that's something that might be really interesting for this team, because I don't know about you, I'm sick and tired of watching a brutal fourth line on this team. Like it's been just enough is enough. Like, especially when they had such a good thing going and they just refused to replicate it over the last 5 to 6 years. I don't understand that. So that's kind of my idea. I don't know if you think that's just stupid or not, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't understand teams that almost waste their fourth line, and that's what I felt like the Flames did this past season, was waste the fourth line. Why can't you use skill on a fourth line? You have 4 lines of forwards. Why not allow yourself to have an effective fourth line? Look at the Florida Panthers right now as they're running over Carolina. Their fourth line is doing a ton of lifting in that series for that team, because they're effective, because they're giving an opportunity, because they can score, because there's skill there, because there's a lot of different ways they can put that line out there. Why not try to replicate what's working for the teams that are winning Stanley Cups or being in Stanley Cup finals? I'm all for that. It would be interesting to see how the minutes would work that way and how you put the wingers, but why not try it? Because what's the worst that could happen? The worst that happens is you stumble upon something that works.
Totally. And you look at like Carolina's fourth line, Eric Robinson, like decent bottom 6 player. Mark Jankowski, decent bottom 6 player. Yeah. William Carrier, he has some skill and physicality. And you look at Florida, this is at least for their last game here. Nico Sturm, he's like a pretty decent player. He's not like your traditional fourth line guy. No sick. He had some good years in Vegas and has some skill. And then you got like kind of like more of a tougher guy like Jonah Gadjevich. Like, those 2 fourth lines that I just kind of pulled up there and talked about, those are more of the 18-19 Flames with Mangiapane, Ryan, Hathaway. Like they've kind of gone in that direction, and they're in the Eastern Conference Final right now. So I would love to see that moving forward. I think it makes nothing but sense.
Yeah, like the idea for sure. Call Huska. Let's move on to the next guy. This one's weird for me. This next one we want to talk about here, because he had 24 points in 63 games in his first season with Calgary, and then only 25 points in 81 games last year. What'd you make of Martin Pospisil, the role he was given? And he was flipped around quite a lot throughout this entire lineup, but what did you make of his season?
Yeah, dude, it's like you're reading my notes right now. This is bizarre. Because the first thing I wrote was Pospisil needs a clear role, because I thought he was all over the place this year in the lineup, and I thought the expectations for him were kind of all over the place. Like, he starts the year as a center and is kind of being asked to be a skill guy playing with Jonathan Huberdeau. And then he's playing on the second power play unit. But then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, now you're on the fourth line. We want you to be physical. And then he is physical. And they say, whoa, you're taking too much penalties. You're being too physical. You need to calm down. We're going to move you back to the top 9, be more of an offensive guy. It's just like the Flames, Huska and Ryan and Craig Conroy, they need to make up their mind with who Martin Pospisil is going to be long-term with this franchise. Because I do think if they figure out a clear and concise role for him moving forward, and for me, that's as a bottom 6 player, I think he can be super effective for, the next 5 to 6, 7 years. For me, Pospisil plays his best hockey when he's forechecking like crazy, when he hits everything that moves, when he's pissing people off, when he's playing a little dirty. I think that's when he plays his best hockey. So if I were the Flames, I would just say go do that stuff, and then I would also do things like teach him to be a penalty killer. I kind of mentioned with Morgan Frost, go under Michael Backlund's wing. If I'm Martin Pospisil, I'm going under Blake Coleman's wing next year, and I'm saying I'm going to copy everything that this guy does because I want to be a good defensive player, but I also want to be super physical and chip in with the odd point every now and then. So, this year was, like you said, it was kind of an interesting one for Pospisil. I think I gave him a B minus. Coming into the year, my expectations were that he should have been a bottom 6 player. So I don't think the 4 goals and 21 assists was, an abject failure. And I don't think his grade should be, in like a D or like C minus or anything like that. So I'm going B minus for him. Obviously, you would have liked to have seen a little bit more offense out of him, but overall, his game is all about physicality and speed and forechecking. And I thought he did that pretty well for the most part this year.
For me, if you can get Martin Pospisil around that 30 points, 35 point mark, teach him to be a responsible two-way forward and allow him to use his forecheck and his speed effectively, I think that's exactly the kind of player he should be and he can be in the National Hockey League. I love what you said about Blake Coleman because my suggestion for this guy moving forward, put him beside Backlund and Coleman. Let them teach him how to be an effective two-way player. Use his skills properly. He can get under people's skin. He can play really, really hard. And that line tends to chip in with a whole bunch of points throughout the season as well. Those guys are very effective at what they do. And who better to learn from than the guy who has done it his entire career in Blake Coleman and Michael Backlund. I really like that idea personally. And I think in a third line role, that's exactly what Martin Pospisil should be doing. He's too good to be a fourth line, just grind it out type of guy, the way the Flames use their fourth line. But I don't think he's skilled enough to play up there with Huberdeau and Kadri and be an effective player for 82 games of the season. This past season was for me, I'm giving him a bit of a pass. I'm going to give him a C+ grade because I blame more of the coaching staff for the season that Pospisil had than Pospisil. Because like you mentioned, one day he was counted on to be a top 6 skilled guy. Well, a week later, now you need you to shut down teams and be a fourth line guy. How's a guy supposed to figure out what he's supposed to be doing and his role on a team if he's consistently put from wing to center, from first line to fourth line? Like, how are you supposed to settle in anywhere here? So Martin Pospisil is an effective player when he's allowed to play how he wants to play. And I think he does that perfectly with a Michael Backlund and a Blake Coleman on that type of a line, and let this guy learn two-way game here. I don't know if you think that idea is outlandish, but that's how I see Martin Pospisil going forward here. Let him be that effective two-way guy and let him go out there and crash and bang and use that speed.
I couldn't agree more. For me, the ideal role for him would be you're a bottom 6 forward. You're going to be on the wing. And yeah, sometimes you'll play on a third line. Sometimes you'll play on a fourth line, but you're going to be a responsible defensive player. You're going to play on the penalty kill, and you're going to crush people. You're going to piss people off. That's it. That's all we want you to do. And if offense comes, fantastic. If you can put up 25 to 30 points a year, that's great. If not, you're still an effective player. Playing on the PK and being defensive and murdering guys on the forecheck. That's what it's all about for Martin Pospisil. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, use that speed, get in there, be disruptive. I like that for Martin Pospisil. From one guy who forechecks like crazy and has a lot of speed to another guy who brings a lot of speed and can forecheck. He plays a high energy game. You're not necessarily going to get points out of this guy, but Ryan Lomberg brings vibes to the Flames. He's beloved in that dressing room. You can tell he's a leader. When he's on the ice, he can be noticeable. We both criticize him throughout the year, but at the same time, we both praise him throughout the year based on what he can do. Ryan Lomberg is a fourth line guy. He's an energy guy. He's a leader in this team. I like what Ryan Lomberg brings. The expectations for Ryan Lomberg, in my opinion, were always going to be low because all you want from this guy is to go out there, crash and bang, and do what you do to be an effective pain in the butt versus any other team you play up against. I gave Ryan Lomberg a B grade because he just met the expectations that were put out for him. If we're to nitpick, I'd like to see a bit more offense from this guy because you've seen it in the past. Like, this is a guy who's gone in there around Florida and he's had 12 goals in 9-goal seasons. It's not too much to ask him to duplicate that. 20 points isn't that hard of an ask as well from a guy like Ryan Lomberg. So I give him a B grade. Interested to see where you go with Ryan Lomberg here, Robert.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This guy he's a culture guy. He's brought in for leadership. He's brought in for energy. to keep things light. You know, like there's like a humor aspect. Like this guy is just a certified beauty. And that's the reason why he was brought to Calgary. And I thought he crushed that role this year. I thought he was really good in that specific role. Yes, on the ice, there were a lot of nights where he wasn't all that effective and didn't accomplish a whole heck of a lot just because of the amount of ice time he played. And, he didn't really generate a whole heck of a lot offensively. But when you take into consideration just everything as a whole, which includes the off-ice aspect of Lomberg, I would also give him a B. I thought he was brought in, like, when it comes to vibes and it comes to culture and all that kind of stuff, A+. When it comes to his on-ice play this year, that probably goes below a B grade. That probably is more like a C+. So it kind of averages out to a B, but I'm okay with having, one slot on your roster for a guy like Lomberg. Like, you watch The Chase this year, and you could just tell, like, this guy is just awesome. Like, he's hilarious. Yeah. He brings so much energy. The guys love him. He's an incredible leader. He's an incredible presence in that room. He's super vocal. Like, I love that kind of stuff. And I do think that stuff is important. So I'm totally okay if there's like one roster spot for a guy like that. And if it's Ryan Lomberg, that's awesome. Like if I'm the Flames, I'm trying to bring him back and I'm trying to keep him here, for at least like another 2 or 3 years beyond this. Cause I think he's like that important to the culture moving forward. So like, they always talk about in the media, like the core 6 of leaders.
Yeah.
Lomberg is 100% in that group, and he's right up there in terms of an important leader on this team. So I'm a huge fan of the guy. The vibes are incredible. The content around the guy was incredible, just from like a fan perspective. Like, yeah, he's such a beauty, and I'm a big fan of his. So yeah, I'll give him a B. And like I said, I hope he's a big part of this team for at least the next 2, 3, 4 years.
The Flames have a couple of guys that are coming up through the system and trying to lock down bottom 6 roles. Guys like a Sam Morton or Carter King. Who better than Ryan Lomberg to teach those guys how to be a professional, what it takes to be a fourth liner in the National Hockey League, what the expectations are when you have that type of role. What a great leader for those kind of guys, in my opinion. Even we talked about Martin Pospisil. If he's on a fourth line role, who better to be paired with than Ryan Lomberg? I fully agree with that he's a leader in this dressing room. And you watch that series the Flames have put out there, like you mentioned, and the guys love him. And how do you not? He's got an infectious smile. It'd be interesting to see how he continues to perform here for the Flames next season here.
Yeah, and like he also steps up physically too. I mean, you talked about the forecheck earlier. I totally agree with you on that. And when it comes to standing up for his teammates, like, he's the first guy to do it. And when he fights guys that are quite a bit bigger than him, sometimes he comes out on the losing end. But just the fact that he's there to stick up for teammates, I think is awesome. Like, the one that sticks out to me is that Matthew Olivier fight in Columbus after Olivier just destroyed Joel Hanley from behind. Such a dirty hit. And Lomberg was there to stick up for his teammates. And I'm like, that's awesome. And I think every team needs people like that on there. And like, he's great. I'm a big fan of the guy.
Yeah, big fan as well. Let's move on. These next 2 guys, I'm very interested in the conversation and where they're going to be, especially the future side of things with these next 2 guys. Let's start with Kevin Bahl. This guy had a career high literally on every stat and category across the board except for games played. What'd you make of the big man's defensive game this year for the Flames, and where do you think he's going to go here with the Calgary Flames?
Yeah, I mean, I predicted at the start of the season he was going to become a top 4 defenseman. That was kind of one of my bold predictions, and I thought that he did just that this year. Like,
100%.
I really believe Kevin Bahl could be a solid, like, number 4 defenseman for this team for a long time. The thing about this year is I actually thought the Flames asked him to do too much. Last year in New Jersey, that was his first full season in the National Hockey League, and he played on a third pair with the Devils. And he comes to Calgary, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're on the top pair, and you're playing with Rasmus Andersson, and you're taking on the hardest matchups. That's a lot to ask a guy like Kevin Bahl at this stage of his career. But I thought he handled himself really well. Like, I think defensively, he's rock solid. I really like his size. Like, I like the reach with his stick. He breaks up a ton of plays. He stick checks a lot. He brings a little bit of physicality. Like, he doesn't crush you necessarily, but he's good at, taking the puck off you and separating you and clearing out the front of the net. Like, I think he's good at all those kinds of things. So, and those are important skill sets to have, because when you take a look at the Flames prospect system, there's not a lot of guys like Kevin Bahl. Like, there's a Solovyov and Kuznetsov, but outside of those guys, there's not a guy that's as big as Bahl and has that sort of defensive prowess like he does. So I think he's actually a really good fit for this team moving forward in the future. So yeah, for this season, I definitely give him an A, 100%. I thought he exceeded expectations. I thought he played well. I do think they asked him to do too much. So moving forward, if he can be like on the second pair and, like I said, be like that number 4 defenseman and play on the penalty kill, I think that role is more kind of well suited for him. And if he does end up playing that role, I think he'll succeed quite a bit. So yeah, I'll give him an A. Thought he was really good. And in terms of the future, I'm signing this guy to a long-term contract, 6, 7. I'd even push potentially 8 years with him. I'm a big believer in him. And, he's only 24 years old. You look at the guy, he looks like he's goddamn 40. Like, he's massive, and he looks like he's older than he is. But yeah, he's only 24 years old. So I'm a big fan of the guy, and I hope they do end up signing him long term.
I think the Flames should lobby the league so they can give him an Ilya Kovalchuk length contract. That's how much I think of Kevin Bahl. You mentioned that they asked him to do too much, and I definitely agree with that. And they asked him to do too much alongside a struggling Rasmus Andersson for most of this season. And then he still went out there and played his heart out every single night. People are going to nitpick that he's not rough enough, that he doesn't use his frame enough, but the guy breaks up so many passes with a great stick, great positioning, big body, so he takes up a lot of ice, and he's hard to play and get around. I love Kevin Bahl. I love what he brings to the organization, what the Flames have here, and there's no reason to doubt that he can get even a little bit better with what we've shown in the growth. If you watched that year in New Jersey when he's on that third pair, he was just fine. He was asked to do very little with very little ice time, and he was very good at it. The Flames gave him everything in the world this year, and he did a really good job and really took the expectations that a lot of us had from him and blew them out of the water. He's only one of 2 guys I gave an A+ to in my grades at the end of the year here, and because of that reason, because of all those reasons I just mentioned, Kevin Bahl is exactly what this Flames team needed. He's exactly what they do need going forward, and I think he's going to turn into a really big leader on the back end for the Flames, whether it's long-term with Rasmus Andersson if he signed back, whether he plays with Mackenzie Weegar, whether he becomes a long-term partner for a Zane Parekh or a Hunter Brzustevich down the line here. It won't matter the role that the Flames ask him to play in, because he's going to excel at it, and everything we saw this year was positive growth. Of course, like every player, you saw some dips every so often in the season, but he always rebounded, and he never cheated you on effort. And that's one big thing that I saw from Kevin Bahl, was always had the effort, always tried hard, and he was there. And he fits perfectly with what Ryan Huska tries to do on the back end as well. So Kevin Bahl is incredible.
Well, yeah, and like I was just going to add you talk about the work effort and all that kind of stuff, and the one of the plays that stands out to me from this season for Bahl was when the Flames were in Carolina and they were just getting crushed. Like, Carolina was all over them.
That game sucked.
It was not fun to watch, that's for sure, from a Flames perspective. And I just remember, like, the final 3 minutes, the Flames took a penalty. I believe the game was tied, and Bahl was out there and just blocking every shot.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that was going towards the net, he was blocking. I remember he blocked one with his head. I'm like, man, this guy is awesome. Like, he's like literally willing to take a puck to the freaking head to keep this game tied and push it to overtime. Like, those are the types of guys that you want to build your team around.
100%. He reminds me of like being a Chris Tanev light. He has better boots than you think he has, but the biggest thing for me with him is the way he uses his stick. It's very sneaky, it's very cerebral, and it's very good at it. And he's really good with the hand-eye coordination of using that stick and keeping himself in a position that's very strong defensively. I'm with you, Robert. Sign this guy for as long as you can. Max out that 8-year deal and give him the money and let him just play for you for the bulk of his career, because he's exactly what the Flames need moving forward here. With all of these offensive defensemen, you're going to need a guy who can take on those tough matchups to shut down other guys. You're going to need that guy to be a steady force back there, much like the Flames had with Robin Regeer back in the day when they had all these guys like Roman Hammerlink and Leopold, just plowing around the ice surface. You need a Robin Regeer to be that steady force back there, and I think they have that with Kevin Bahl now.
Totally. And like you take a look at Stanley Cup champions too, a lot of their defensemen are massive. A lot of them are like 6'3" and above. And I do think that you need those types of guys with that kind of size in today's NHL to win. And yeah, Bahl brings that in spades. The guy is an absolute unit. So there's lots to like about Kevin Bahl. I'd love to see like a 7 or 8 year deal. I know there's been like some talk about like 4, 5, 6 years. Mm-hmm. I'd push 7 or 8, and I'd give him, kind of in like that $4 to $4.5 million a year kind of thing. And if that could get the job done, that would be fantastic for this team moving forward, I think.
And I think he'd be worth every penny of it, right? People might call that an overpay to start, but you think this guy's going to get better every year. He's going to get stronger still. He's only 24. Like, we got to remember the age of this guy. It's not like they brought in a 29-year-old defenseman to play alongside Rasmus Sanderson. This guy's 24. And if we all remember back when we were 24, I don't think we were at the peak of our physical abilities quite yet. Lots of room to grow for this guy, and I think the Flames are going to reap the benefit of it. Anything else on Kevin Bahl here before we move to the guy that no one ever talks about?
Yep, let's go to that guy that no one ever talks about.
Yeah,
super under the radar.
Never saw any articles on the guy. The fan never talked about him. The podcasts around the world never talked about this guy. We're only talking about Calder finalist, a guy who put himself in the Vezina Trophy conversation for a while in the season. Only 29 wins as a rookie in the National Hockey League. I'll let you go first and wax poetically here about Dustin Wolf.
Well, I mean, you and I, we've talked about him what feels like every episode this season, and we've just talked about how damn good he was. Like from start to finish this year, the guy was just fantastic. He was the sole reason why the Flames were in a playoff chase this year. He really put the team on his back. Like, there were so many nights this year where the Flames were getting badly outplayed, especially early on in games. And Dustin Wolf would single-handedly keep them in games and allow them to come back and get their stuff together. And, he's by far the most important player on the team this season. To do it as a 22 or 23-year-old is absolutely incredible. And, the Flames, they have a foundational piece. They have like a true foundational piece to build around, like an Andre Vasilevsky kind of guy. The kid's a freak athlete. You just see like some of the saves he makes, like how fast he gets from side to side, how well he reads the play, the hand-eye coordination, the athleticism. It's just everything is at an elite level. And I really do see him winning like a Vezina or two throughout his career. I think when it's all said and done, I do think that he'll be regarded as one of the great Calgary Flames of all time. It's probably putting a lot of expectations on him, but when we look back on it, I really do think it'll be like Mike Vernon, Mika Kiprusoff, and Dustin Wolf. Like, those are the three-headed monster in terms of greatest goalies in Flames history. So if I'm Craig Conroy this summer, I'm doing everything I can to sign him to an 8-year deal to keep that cap hit as low as possible. Because with the cap going up and with what I think is sky high potential for Dustin Wolf, that deal is only going to get more and more expensive the more you push it out. So obviously he gets an A+, most important player on the team. I think he should win the Calder Trophy. He led the Flames to a 96-point season, more than Macklin Celebrini, San Jose Sharks, more than Lane Hutson's Montreal Canadiens. And I thought that he was a more impactful, important player on that team. Like, we always talk about when it comes to the MVP conversation, like, take that player away from that team and what do they look like? If you take Celebrini away from the Sharks, they're still in the basement. You take Lane Hutson away from the Montreal Canadiens, they're not going to make the playoffs, but I think they'd be kind of right in the mix for a wild card spot. You take Dustin Wolf away from the Flames, they go from a 96-point team to a team probably that gets points in the 70s and is a bottom 5, bottom 10 team in the NHL. Like, he was that important to the Flames. So I think he should win the Calder. I think he's one of the most important players to his team in the NHL this season, and they're very lucky to have him. He is phenomenal.
Man, I got so much to say about Dustin Wolf here. I don't even know where to start with my thoughts here. I think he should win the Calder as well for a lot of things you just mentioned there. I hate that playoffs matter in these conversations for some reason rather than the importance of the actual award. But c'est la vie. Dustin Wolf did everything for the Flames this year except score the goals that won the games. He literally was the Calgary Flames. He literally dragged this team along. And I'm right there with you. I laughed when you and snickered when you said 70-something points if the Flames without Dustin Wolf. I don't think you're far off that, to be honest, at all. I think he's very Dustin Wolf stole 8 to 10 wins this year for the Flames easily. The way that he played for the Flames, he's quick in his movements. He reads the play exceptionally well, and he's just comical. Nothing rattled him this year. 53 starts. I can only remember him being pulled once, and that was a mercy pulling. It wasn't even on Dustin Wolf. It's because that's how bad the Flames in front of him were. This guy is exactly what you look at when you're looking for a goaltender, a guy who can be poised, a guy who's going to make you the saves when they matter, a guy who's going to steal you games, and a guy who's not going to cheat you on effort no matter what the situation is. Even that game, he was getting shelled, like in Toronto, he was getting shelled. He just didn't quit, never quit. And that's what you want from a guy when he's back there. And you don't necessarily look at your goaltenders as captains and leaders. This guy's definitely going to be a leader. He definitely is going to be a guy that this team will lean on for years to come. I will not hear of the Discord on Twitter and social media where you have to worry about a regression with Dustin Wolf. Who cares? Even a small regression from this guy is still better than what the Flames were getting before Dustin Wolf was here. It's even better than a lot of teams are going to get coming up this year. Look at Philadelphia's goaltending. Do you think they'd kill for a Dustin Wolf? I think they absolutely would. This guy needs to be signed long term. This guy needs to be given the money that he deserves, and this guy should be the cornerstone of the Calgary Flames going forward. This guy is an A+ in my books. That's the report card I'm going to give him as an A+, and he's earned every single bit of praise that he gets. Whether he wins the Calder or not, it's still a great honor for Dustin Wolf to be in that conversation, and I would be willing to put money on it that he wins a Vezina trophy within the next 6 or 7 seasons in the National Hockey League. And that is with all these great goaltenders around the National Hockey League. I think he is good enough to be up there with the Shesterkins and the Vasilevskis and the Hellebucks, the Ottingers. He's right up there with me, for me up there as well. So there's nothing but praise for Dustin Wolf, the job that he's done, all as a rookie. That's going to be incredible. I cannot wait for the encore next year and what we get from number 32.
Yeah, like I love what you said there about his personality. Like this guy is dialed in and nothing bothers him. He's insanely confident. Like he's literally the exact type of person you want to be your starting goalie. And you know, he has just this incredible belief in himself. He has this amazing work ethic. Incredible high hockey IQ for a goaltender. Like he checks every single box. The only box he doesn't check is size, and he's clearly proved that that's not an issue. So who cares how big he is in the grand scheme of things? So yeah, man, so good, easy A+. Like by far the team's MVP this year. He was incredible, and honestly, he's the reason why this team can't like truly like bottom out and rebuild, because
100%.
He's too damn good. And that, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like it's great for Wolf. I don't know if it's necessarily great for the long-term, you know, future and asset accumulation for the Flames. Like I don't know how they're going to get that number one center because this kid is so damn good, but you know, it's a good problem to have. It's a really, really good problem to have.
I think the way that Dustin Wolf plays and what he does for the Flames are looking at, if they're going to be a successful team, they've got to take a page out of the St. Louis Blues notebook when they had Ryan O'Reilly down the middle and Shen. Get yourself 2 really good center guys, maybe not elite number 1 guys in this league, but 2 really, really good centers, and you can win that way and have success that way, because the Flames aren't going to be bottoming out with this guy. They're just not. It's not going to happen. Dustin Wolf is a perfectionist. You heard Jason LaBarbera in many interviews talk about how he's one of the first guys out there in the morning, and he's always working on what's bothering him. What saves didn't he make the night before? Well, he's out there trying to correct, and how do I prevent that in the future? You can't teach that type of drive. That just is something that comes with the guy, and it's a good problem to have, as much as people might want to be like, ugh, we're never going to bottom out. It's a good problem to have. I'd rather find a goaltender like Dustin Wolf than wander through the deserts with the Brian Elliots and the Kari Ramos and the Jonas Hillers and the hundreds of other goaltenders between Kamika Kiprasov and Dustin Wolf. I'd rather have the goalie and not have to worry about it than have the team and have to worry about a goaltender.
Yep, could not agree more with you. The kid is a stud, absolute stud. We got a superstar in Calgary.
Okay, we are up against it, but let's fire through these last four guys. There's four guys we haven't given letter grades to that really weren't impact makers on the roster, but they were around the roster. Some played more than others. Some had their season ended by injury. So a little bit of a rapid fire here, maybe one thought on each of these guys. Robert, let's start with Kirkland. What'd you make of the short time we saw Kirkland?
Yeah, speaking about, blowing expectations out of the water, I mean, Justin Kirkland's in that same conversation. I mean, I thought he was going to be a Wrangler all season, but he came up and was truly like a legitimately effective player for the Calgary Flames up until he got hurt. Obviously he had the shootout goals that everybody knows about, but at 5-on-5, he was like literally one of their most productive forwards for those first like 20 games that he played, because the team couldn't score, and he was playing fourth line minutes and was putting up like a decent point rate. So super, super impressive. I mean, moving forward, it sounds like they're going to sign him. I wouldn't sign him to anything more than a 1-year deal, because he's coming off a significant knee injury, and he's 29 years old. And he's been kind of a journeyman minor leaguer. So I'd be willing to take another chance on him and see if he can do anything, but I wouldn't be willing to invest really anything more than that in Kirkland. But just a pretty remarkable story. And yeah, boy, did he play well for when you consider the expectations for him last season.
Yeah, fun story. He was fun to watch, good shootouts, and he was fine 5-on-5, like you mentioned there. I bring him back only as a camp body, and if he can earn it again, then I'd ride the wave again. There's a reason he's a career AHLer though, so we'll leave it at that. I like the guy, enjoyed the ride, but let's see if he can duplicate that if he comes back to camp here.
Yeah, and like I'm just like one more quick thing. Like I'm seeing like a lot of like Flames media saying, like you have to bring him back, and like it's a slam dunk to bring him back, and he's on the team next year. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like I would bring him back, and I'm like with you, like he's got to earn it again. He definitely is not penned into the roster heading into next season. Like he 100% has to earn it. I don't think it's a guarantee at all that he makes the team next year.
We've seen this type of story before, where guys come in here and they have a really good small run with the team, and then they never ever find it again. And that's, I think, what we might be looking at here with Kirkland. All due respect to the guy, but if you can earn it again, I'm happy to ride that wave again. The next guy played a good majority of the games this season. He took a lot of hate, maybe too much hate on social media. Fourth line center role. What did you make of the season of Mr. Rooney?
I would say for 80% of it, I thought he was really bad. I thought he was an AHL player. He should not have been playing in the National Hockey League. He was a big reason why the Flames weren't winning as much as they probably should have been. Like he was just getting torched every night. I do think he had a stronger finish to the season, and good on him for that. But overall, I thought he really struggled. I thought he had a really bad year, and I would absolutely not bring him back next year.
Yeah, I thought he was okay. He was fine for the fourth line role. If there was anybody else in the organization that could do the fourth line role, and I emphasize the fourth line role that the Flames asked their fourth line players to play, I would have made the switch. I don't think Rory Cairns is that answer like social media would suggest to you. But he is what he is, and I think I wouldn't bring him back either. I have a suspicion the Flames will, maybe on a 1-year deal.
You think so?
Yeah, I've seen this movie more than once, Robert, and that's what scares me about. Even though it's a different manager, I've seen this movie before. 1-year deal for an aging veteran that they could use as a 13th forward. I just see it. I just see it. I wouldn't do it, but I do see it.
I hope you're wrong.
Me too. Don't trust me. Don't worry. The next guy here got a lot of love at the last part of the season. He had a really good, strong finish. Adam Klapka got a lot of time on the top line to end the season. I liked what I saw from the big man. He seemingly got stronger and stronger. I think he blew out the expectations that I had for him for this season. I thought he was an AHLer for the most part, maybe a bottom 6 guy. I do question if he can carry that over to next year, and what can we see from him next season. I don't want to keep doubting the big man because he has the skill. We've seen the skill, but he's got to show it to me for longer than a 2 weeks, a 2 week at the end of the year type of sample size. So if he can do it again, happy to play him in that top 6. If not, I wonder where his role is with the Flames next year. and what the Flames do with him next year. But I think Adam Klapka deserves an opportunity to show what he's given based on what we saw this year. And I think he, like I said, I think he was better than his expectations. What did you make of the big man?
Yeah, he was great in like those last like 25 games. Like he was really good. I think he was fourth in the team in scoring in the final 20 games and like third in goals. Like just really came out of nowhere. It was really fun to watch. And if Klapka if he decides to become like a very physical player and really focus on physicality and skating and playing decent defense, I do think he has a pretty long future in the NHL. The expectations for him should be tempered. Like people should not think that he's going to be like a 15, 20 goal guy. Like I almost seem like Pospisil in the sense where if he can score you like, 8 to 12 goals and 20 to 25 points and just be an absolute mutant on the fourth line, I got no problem with that. So I like the guy. I absolutely sign him to probably like a 1 or 2 year deal, give him a few more opportunities to prove he can be an NHLer. And the skill is there, the potential's there, skating, size, obviously, like everything's there. I just think he needs to make it up in his mind that, okay, I'm going to fully commit to being a physical force and not be a first line skill guy. Cause I don't know if he can keep that type of play up for an 82 game season.
As much fun of a ride that was at the end of the year for him, how big is this training camp for Adam Klapka coming up here?
Massive.
September? Yeah, it's pretty huge for me as well. We were joking that this last guy would send me on a rant. I'm not going to rant. I'm just going to say this guy was an F all around the board. Didn't see anything positive from the guy. He was very much below my expectations, and I'm very much ready to move on from the player. But let's hear your thoughts on Danilo Marimanov.
I don't have much more to add to that. I don't think he's a full-time NHL defenseman. If he's your number 8, number 9 in your organization, I think that's fine. But if he's playing in your top 6 on a regular basis, I think you're in trouble. He just doesn't really excel at anything. He's got a little bit of skill, but he's not the best skater. He's not the best defender. He doesn't put up a ton of points. I just don't know what his role is in the NHL. So yeah, Danilo Marimanov, I'm with you. I hope the Flames move off of him, whether it's a trade, a buyout, waivers, anything. Just I would not have him on the roster next season.
No one's trading for that, let's be honest. When Craig Conroy traded Hanifin for him and he sold us on Marimanov, I was ready to give this guy a shot. And so coming into this season, I just thought, hey, if this is what Conroy actually got from this guy, if we're going to see it, that's exactly what the Flames need on the right side. A guy who can move the puck and can play well and be in that bottom 4 and really give the Flames some really good minutes. Well, he gave him some really good popcorn minutes because he was in the press box a hell of a lot. And I think this is the one swing and miss I've seen from Conroy in a trade that just makes me regret the trade a little bit because this guy literally brought nothing for the Flames. And it's very unfortunate that they have to go down this road with this guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. And yeah, hopefully they decide to cut bait. I don't think he should have a roster spot next year, especially when you got guys like, Solovyov and Kuznetsov and Ristevich and all these guys that deserve an opportunity, and hopefully he doesn't block them.
When you mentioned he's your 8th or 9th defenseman, I joked in my head, 8th or 9th in the American Hockey League, is that what we're talking about? Because you have Solovyov, you have Kuznetsov, what is Jeremy Poirier, and then you've got your Hunter Bristeviches, then you got your junior guys in Henry Muse and Perek and all these other guys coming up. How far down the depth chart does this guy fall in the next years if he hangs around in Calgary? So just not worth it for me, to be honest, at the end of the day here. Those are our letter grades. Let us know in the comments what you like about them, what you hate about them. Did we go wrong somewhere in our letter grade that you would have gone differently? And what did you make of some of these players this year? Let us know in our comment section on our social media. Robert, what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca? Where can the folks find you and your work?
Yeah, just follow me at Ring of Fire CGY. I've been putting out my letter grades on X and as well as some like highlight tapes and all that kind of fun stuff. So continue to look out for that. And yeah, man, these were some fun episodes to do. I like doing these deep dives, and I don't think there's many other podcasts or Flames coverage out there like this right now. So hopefully people are enjoying it.
If there is, I haven't heard any of it. And yes, follow Robert. Make sure you check out those articles. He actually backs up his letter grades in written form on the internet. I just have my spoken word here on the podcast. So follow me at VintageJohnny84 across social media. And of course, the show Red Mile Rundown, wherever you do your social mediaing. And thank you so much for the downloads and listens across this off season. We'll be back next week with some more great topics. Maybe an outlook to what's coming up for the draft for the Flames and a bit more. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the hockey. We'll see you guys.